A nurse working 60-hour weeks pays a 32% tax rate. Warren Buffett, sitting on $69 million in annual investment income, pays 0.1%. That's not a glitch. That's the foundational trick every billionaire tax strategy is built on, and today I'm breaking down every single method they use to pay nothing. Starting with the one that makes all the others possible. Capital gains versus income tax arbitrage. Here's how the game works. If you earn money by working, you pay up to 37% in federal income tax. If you earn money by owning things that go up in value, you pay a maximum of 20%, often less, sometimes zero. The ultra-wealthy derive 79% of their income from capital gains, not salaries, not hourly wages, stocks appreciating, dividends rolling in, assets climbing in value while they sleep. That single classification difference drops their effective tax rate to 3.4%. Let me put that in perspective. A teacher making $85,000 a year pays a higher percentage than someone making $85 million, and this isn't some loophole that slipped through the cracks. It's baked directly into the tax code under IRC Section 110H, reinforced by the 2003 qualified dividend rules and defended every single year by investment lobbyists who argue that raising rates would crash the stock market. The top 400 earners in America paid lower tax rates than middle-class families in 21 of 25 years analyzed. The system literally rewards owning things over doing things, which is, not ideal, but if you think a preferential rate is bad, wait until you see what happens when billionaires replace their salaries entirely with stock. Stock compensation instead of salary. Here's something that should make you laugh or cry or both. The richest people on the planet technically earn nothing. Their tax forms say zero. The IRS looks at their income and sees a number smaller than what a teenager makes working at Subway. And it's completely legal. Here's how it works. Top CEOs in the S&P 500 earn 80 to 90% of their compensation through stock. The average base salary sits around $1.5 million, which sounds like a lot until you realize the equity portion is $21 million. But here's the thing about stock. It's not income. Not until you sell it. So on paper, these people earn almost nothing. Elon Musk's 2020 compensation was $0. His salary was literally nothing. Meanwhile, his Tesla stock options were worth $6.7 billion. The man became the richest person on Earth while technically being unemployed. But the real kicker is Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce. In 2019, despite his wealth increasing by $156 million, he paid zero federal income tax. He took 100% stock compensation, which means the IRS saw a guy worth 9 figures and went, looks like he needs a tax refund. Oh, and regular salary gets hit with 15.3% in payroll taxes. Stock compensation, exempt. Billionaires skip that entirely while you pay it on every single paycheck. CEOs control when their grants vest, timing everything to minimize tax events. Everyone else gets table scraps and a W-2 that the government taxes immediately. If you think dodging payroll taxes on billions is bad, wait until you see how they manufacture fake losses to erase the taxes they do owe. Tax loss harvesting. Here's a strategy that sounds like it was invented by someone having a stroke. You lose money on purpose to save money on taxes. That's it. That's the whole thing. And somehow it works. The basic idea is simple. You sell an investment that's down, lock in that loss on paper, and use it to cancel out your gains somewhere else. If you made $2 million on one trade and lost $1 million on another, you only owe taxes on the net $1 million. Cool. But billionaires turned this into an industrial operation. The ultra-wealthy don't just harvest losses when markets dip, they engineer portfolios specifically designed to generate harvestable losses year-round across hundreds of positions. Algorithms scan thousands of holdings daily, identifying anything sitting at a loss and selling it instantly. The estimated tax savings at scale runs into the hundreds of millions annually. One bad day in the market isn't a problem for these people. It's a coupon. Now, the IRS has one rule designed to stop this. The wash sale rule says you can't sell a stock at a loss and rebuy the same thing within 30 days. Sounds tight, but billionaires just buy something substantially identical instead. Sell your Vanguard S&P 500 fund, immediately buy the iShares S&P 500 fund. Identical exposure, different ticker, perfectly legal, which is, not ideal. And before anyone in the comments says I do this too, here's the thing. Normal people can only deduct $3,000 in losses against regular income per year. $3,000 versus hundreds of millions. Same strategy, completely different universe. But if you think losing money on purpose is creative, wait until you see how billionaires make buildings disappear on paper. Depreciation on real estate and assets. Here's something that will break your brain if you think about it too long. The IRS lets you claim that a building is losing value every single year, even while that building is actively gaining value in the real market. You get to deduct imaginary losses from your taxes while your actual net worth climbs. I don't know what to tell you, that's just how it works. The mechanism is called depreciation. For residential real estate, you can write off the entire value of a property over 27.5 years. The IRS assumes buildings decay and lose worth over time, which sure, some do. But a Manhattan high-rise? Not so much. Jared Kushner claimed $110 million in depreciation on a $400 million NYC property. The building was appreciating the entire time. Every year it was worth more. Every year he told the IRS it was worth less. His federal income tax bill? $0. The building's actual market trajectory? Straight up. Hey IRS, my skyscraper is basically crumbling. Meanwhile, the property value goes up another $30 million. Cool. That's also a thing that happened, but it gets better. Sports team owners can write off 50% of their franchise's purchase price as intangible assets. Steve Ballmer bought the Clippers for $2 billion and deducted $1.3 billion from his taxes for buying a basketball team. 80% of commercial real estate owners pay zero income tax using these deductions, and when they finally sell, they're supposed to pay recapture taxes on all that depreciation. But they just roll the proceeds into a new property via a 1031 exchange, recapture avoided, cycle restarted, infinite loop. But if you think gaming the tax code through imaginary building decay is audacious, wait until you see what happens when billionaires discover they can donate things to themselves. Charitable foundations. Here's something that sounds noble on paper. Billionaire donates billions to charity, gets a tax deduction, everyone claps. Beautiful system. Except it's not charity, it's a savings account with a halo. Here's how it actually works. You donate appreciated stock to a private foundation, you get a tax deduction of up to 30% of your adjusted gross income, you avoid capital gains taxes on the stock entirely, and here's the kicker, you still control the money. Every penny of it. Mark Zuckerberg donated $1.3 billion in Facebook stock to the Chen Zuckerberg Initiative, avoided roughly $400 million in capital gains taxes. Sounds generous until you realize it's not even a foundation, it's an LLC. He can use that money for political lobbying, private investments, literally anything. There are zero charitable distribution requirements. He just moved money from one pocket to another, and the government thanked him for it. But even real foundations are barely better. The law says you must distribute 5% of assets per year. 5%. And that 5% can include paying your own family members as executives. George Soros paid his children $500,000 a year as foundation advisors. That counts toward the requirement. Cool. The Gates Foundation holds $50 billion in assets. It earned $1.8 billion in investment income in 2021 and paid zero taxes on it. At the minimum 5% payout rate, that endowment could theoretically last over 200 years. The foundation grows faster than it gives. Do the math on a smaller scale. Donate $1 million, save $370,000 in taxes at the 37% rate, then distribute $50,000 a year while the rest compounds indefinitely. The tax savings often exceed what actually reaches anyone in need. It's a tax shelter that sends you thank you cards. But if you think charitable foundations sound like a long game, wait until you hear about the strategy that literally requires you to die to complete it. Buy, borrow, die. This is it, the grand unified theory. Every other strategy on this list is a side quest compared to this one. Buy, borrow, die. 3 words that defeat the entire tax code, and the last one is morbidly hilarious. Here's how it works. Step 1. Buy appreciating assets. Stocks, real estate, whatever goes up. You never sell them, ever. Because the moment you sell, you owe capital gains tax. So you just don't. Step 2. Borrow against those assets. Banks will happily lend you 50 to 90% of your portfolio's value at 3 to 7% interest. And here's the thing, loan proceeds aren't income, they're debt. So you live off borrowed money, tax-free, while your assets keep growing in the background. Jeff Bezos held $24 billion in Amazon stock for 25 years, never sold, never paid capital gains. But between 2014 and 2018, he borrowed $1.5 billion against it. Elon Musk pulled the same move in 2018. His wealth grew by $2.3 billion that year. Federal income tax paid? 0. He'd borrowed $6 billion against Tesla stock instead of selling a single share. Step 3, die. No, seriously. When you die, your heirs receive what's called a stepped-up basis under Section 1014. That means the cost basis of every asset resets to its current market value. All those unrealized gains, gone, erased. Nobody ever pays tax on them. Not you, not your kids, not anyone. Billionaires paid 0 federal income tax across 5 years while their collective wealth grew by $41 billion. That's not a loophole. That's the system working exactly as written, but if you think domestic tax avoidance is elegant, wait until you see what happens when billionaires move their money offshore. Offshore trusts. When you hear offshore tax haven, you're probably picturing some tiny island nation with palm trees and suspicious banking laws. Maybe the Cayman Islands, maybe Switzerland, somewhere far away and vaguely criminal. It's South Dakota. Yeah, but so I don't know what to tell you. The Mount Rushmore state abolished inheritance taxes, allowed trusts to exist forever, and between 2004 and 2022, $360 billion poured into its trust system. South Dakota is now competing with the Seychelles and the British Virgin Islands for billionaire money, and it's winning. Here's how it works. You set up what's called a perpetual trust in South Dakota. Your assets sit there indefinitely, never triggering estate taxes, never passing through probate, and if anyone tries to come after that money, they have to sue you in South Dakota courts under South Dakota law, which is, not ideal for them. The Pandora Papers blew this wide open. 29,000 offshore entities across 90 countries, $9.8 billion in hidden assets, and over 300 U.S. citizens using these structures completely legally. But the real kicker was Qatar's royal family. After the Panama Papers made their old hiding spots too hot, they moved $300 million directly into South Dakota trusts. A royal family from the Middle East chose a U.S. state as their tax shelter. Let that sink in. Meanwhile, the British Virgin Islands host 450,000 shell companies holding over $7 trillion. You can set one up for $1,500 with nominee directors whose only job is making sure nobody knows you own it. The IRS estimates this costs America $40 to $70 billion every single year. The tax haven isn't overseas anymore. It's got a zip code and a senator, but if you think hiding money is impressive, wait until you see how billionaires get the government to literally pay them to gentrify poor neighborhoods. Opportunity zones. This is the one that genuinely made me angry to research. Every other strategy on this list is at least honest about what it is: rich people exploiting loopholes designed for rich people. But opportunity zones, these were sold to the American public as a way to help poor communities. That was the pitch. That was the entire justification for handing billionaires another tax break. Here's how it works. You take capital gains from any investment, park them in a designated opportunity zone fund, and after 10 years, all new appreciation becomes completely tax-free. Not reduced, not deferred, free. You also get to defer your original gains until 2026 with a nice 10 to 15% basis step up just for participating. The program covers 8,764 census tracts across America. Sounds noble until you learn that 70% of those tracts were already gentrifying before they got designated in 2017. The poor areas were already getting richer. The money was always going to flow there anyway. And where did the capital actually go? 91% went straight into real estate, not small businesses, not community centers, not job creation, luxury apartments, and commercial developments. Blackstone raised one of the largest opportunity zone funds in existence, bought thousands of apartments in low-income areas, then pushed rents up aggressively on the people the program was literally designed to help. That's not an unintended consequence. That's the business model. MBA owner Dan Gilbert dumped $1 billion into Detroit's opportunity zones, dodging an estimated $250 million in taxes. And the result? Multiple studies found little to no evidence that opportunity zones reduce poverty in designated areas compared to similar tracts without the designation. In some analyses, non-designated areas actually performed better. The zones may have done worse than doing nothing. The system isn't broken, it was built this way. Every strategy in this video exists because someone wrote it into law on purpose. The loopholes aren't accidents, they're features. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.